My name is Tom Sanderson, co-director of Transnational Threats at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have two superb speakers. Graham is our guest today, Graham Wood, and Dr. Tony Korsman will offer some comments on Graham's article in The Atlantic, his excellent article, and then I'll offer a few questions and then turn it out to the rest of you for engagement. Since we have such a small group here, I thought we'll go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves, your name and where you're from, and then we'll open it up to Graham for about 10, 15 minutes of comments, and then to Tony. Okay, Olivia?
Okay, my name is Olivia.
I'm John Hurley. I'm across the street at St. Matthew's Cathedral, but I teach part-time at Catholic University, most recently politics, international politics and religion, and I used to be in the Foreign Service, my previous hierarchy.
I'm John Colclazier, Air Force Colonel, retired. I teach now over at Fort Belvoir for the Command and General Staff Officers course. They wanted a blue suiter in there too, so I do that. I teach multinational operations, creative thinking, things of that ilk.
Good morning, I'm Josh Vasakis. I work as Tom's RA at the TNT project.
I'm Hunter Keith. I work at DAI on violent extremism and governance.
Hi, I'm Mohammed Grar. I used to intern for Tom and just here at a personal interest.
I'm Alvaro Gini. I work at CSIS with the Brown Chair.
I'm Max Peck. I'm in the Middle East program here at CSIS.
Hi, I'm Mike. I work at the Italian Embassy.
Nathan Puffer, adjunct on TNT and Senior Vice President of Global Strategies Group, North America.
Caleb Johnson. I'm here at CSIS in the Strategic Planning Department.
My name is Cateri Carmola, and now I'm a consultant for the private security industry, but before then I was a professor of political science and taught on comparative terrorism.
I'm Tony Korsman. I hold the Burke Chair in Strategy here at CSIS.
And I'm Graham Wood. I'm a contributing editor at the New Republic magazine and the Atlantic magazine, and I wrote this year a large article about what ISIS really wants.
Great. I'll actually pass this around for those folks who haven't seen it. But as that's passed around, we'll let Graham begin with his comments. Graham, thank you so much for coming down, making the trip during the storm. This has received tremendous attention, well-deserved. Hunter introduced you to me, and I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. So go for it. Thanks.
Well, as the cover suggests, I was trying to ask this fairly simple question, and my editor suggested that I ask it with almost a faux naivete. What does ISIS want? And as I tried to ask it, I discovered there was nothing faux about the naivete whatsoever. It was very, very murky what ISIS wanted, and I think in many ways the ways that the question had been implicitly and explicitly answered in public discourse had actually confused and muddied the answer to that actually turned out to be the case. I'll tell you first just how I went about this. There are, as I think everybody in this room knows, there's quite a few statements that are put out by the Islamic State itself. And these, of course, are regarded as, and they are verifiable statements, and they're reliably translated into English and other Western languages as well. So I regarded those as, shall we say, primary sources, and was looking from there to voices outside of the Islamic State, since the Islamic State doesn't really answer press requests or email in a conventional way. Voices outside the Islamic State that were viewed by the reliable voices within it as, or that were viewed as reflecting some of the doctrinal consensus of the Islamic State in the things they were saying. And this was partially just to compare what they said to the official pronouncements, but also to see who was looking to these voices as sources of authority or consistency. There had been studies done on social media, for example, to find out which accounts seemed to be looked to with deference, which ones seemed to be followed by the verified other accounts that were known to be supporters of the Islamic State. And of course, this is a highly there are many problems with this approach, but it's the one that clearly was as good as I could get in finding out what the Islamic State wanted in theory. And I stress that that is the project that I was undertaking, was to find out ideologically, doctrinally, what the Islamic State wanted and how it viewed itself, with the intention of figuring that out and perhaps understanding something about the attraction that it was exerting to what we now are tens of thousands of foreign fighters and thousands of foreign fighters from Western countries. So where that took me initially, in addition to the digital explorations, was to two groups of people. One individual in Australia named Musa Charantonio, who was named in a King's College London study as one of the two most important nodes of doctrinal enforcement and dissemination. Then this well-known group within the United Kingdom, formerly known as Al-Muhajirun, a group of very media-savvy fans of the Islamic State who are well known to the public, also well known to authorities, and who, at the time I was speaking to them, had been prevented from leaving to go to the Islamic State through confiscation of their passports, although some members of that group already had gone. And actually, on the very days that I was speaking to their comrades in the UK, were tweeting out photographs of themselves in Raqqa with weapons and in one case a newborn son. So I went to London. I spoke to these people, and what I found was that they had, especially the media savvy ones, they had spoken to many reporters before. The small contribution that I was hoping to add, though, was to ask them not just the sort of cable news style questions that they'd had before, such as, what's wrong with you? But really, in detail, what do you believe? What is it what do you think? What is this project that you're calling a caliphate? And what distinguishes it from previous types of jihadism that I might have heard or read about in the past? And the distinctions became quite clear. Their leader, very well-known guy named Anjem Chowdhury, he was describing the caliphate as a kind of ideological light switch that had been thrown that was going to attract him and others the way an insect would be attracted to light. He said, as a Muslim, he considered, he gave the figure 80%. 80% of Islam he considered to have been essentially in abeyance, in the absence of a proper Islamic State. And he said that once a valid caliphate had been declared, a whole slew of obligations suddenly were awakened. And that, he expressed to me, was why the middle of last year, the time of the declaration of the caliphate, was so crucial as a turning point in the attraction of of Syria to like-minded individuals. So there are plenty of particular aspects of his version of the caliphate that I can get into. But I would just like to express that he seemed to think of this as a utopian project. It was not merely, although it was this too, a political one or a expression of defiance, but it was a society that he was describing that would be fully realized and include all sorts of very, utopian is not even an adequate word for it, extremely optimistic views of how things would eventually be organized. The ability of a state to provide, for example, free healthcare, free food, free housing, free clothing to all of its citizens. That was the kind of utopian view that he was in particular pushing out, and that I think in his core group was certainly an article of great importance and attraction to the caliphate. What I learned from the Australian was slightly different. He was almost entirely consistent ideologically with the London group, but he stressed a different aspect, which we could also see throughout the primary documents, and that is an apocalypticism. This was his, I would say, main preoccupation, and he recently came out with, you can look it up online, a rather interesting, learned document trying to interpret the hadith mention of a group called Rome, Rome or the Romans. And his claim, rather heterodox, is that the mention of the Romans as the army that will meet will meet Islam at the city in Dabiq in northern Syria, according to his interpretation, actually referred to the army of the Republic of Turkey, which I can get into why he thinks that. He believes that the mention of Rome in Hadith would have referred to the Eastern Roman Empire, which was in Constantinople, and the closest continuer of that group would be Istanbul/Ankara today. It was striking to me to hear him speak in these apocalyptic terms, not because it was the first time anyone from this longish now and diverse tradition of Al-Qaeda had spoken in apocalyptic terms, but he was very clear that these were events that he expected to happen soon. And this, as I think a matter of consistency, is something that I would see constantly in social media, in the official pronouncements of the state, the propaganda that would come out. The imminent fulfillment of prophecies is something that, in his view, I was inclined to think that this was something that, even if he spoke of it in literal, imminent terms, was in some way flexible or metaphorical. He urged me not to see it that way, and has urged me, actually, since the article came out, not to see things that way, but to say, look, we really do believe